Hello, everyone, and welcome to the beginning of our pre-festival Oscar predictions. It's the last time of year before most of these movies get seen, and then they have reviews, and then it becomes a little easier to predict. This is really the last chance we have to maybe make some big swings. Lots of unknown stuff going on, but yeah, we've got the lineups for most of the film festivals: TIFF, NIFF, Venice, all that stuff. So we're getting a better picture of the upcoming award season, but it's still pretty up in the air. So we're going to do Best Picture in this video. We'll have other videos for acting, and then we'll probably just bunch like directing, screenplay, and everything else together in another video. But starting off with Picture, the big one, the big kahuna. Any thoughts, Anthony, before we get into the predictions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the festivals are certainly painting a picture. I wonder how much influence they'll have, given that we have a lot of like big studio favorites this year, coming
Mhm.
off of a win for a big studio hit with Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because you're going to have some movies that are not going to premiere until they premiere for the world,
Mhm.
so it's definitely, it's just something to keep your eye on. Some of the precursors might not translate in the same way because they're not competing against the same crop of films. Just something to keep in mind when we talk about the films that are in contention and the ones that are definitely going to get some eyeballs on it sooner rather than later. I mean, that's what's exciting. I mean, it's a lot of these movies that we've been predicting since, Gold Derby or
Oh,
Balls,
yeah.
nobody's seen, and now eyeballs are going to get on it. So that's exciting, and we're going to see.
Yeah.
Then we're always going to see some movies are going to drop because then they see it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is
I
this is
don't
the
think
you know.
Yeah, I don't think that's been the worst I think we've experienced with that was 2022 when it's like suddenly Bardo is terrible, The Sun is terrible, all these movies
I
are
liked
supposed to.
Bardo.
I liked Bardo too, but it did kind of flop at the festivals. Last year that didn't really happen, so we'll have to see. I'm sure there's destined to be one or two movies that aren't as good as expected. 2025 Oscar predictions, pre-festival August edition. Starting off with, I'm going to do it in groups of 5 at the start. So right now, most people had Sing Sing winning a few months ago. We'll get into that at number 3 in a second. But like I said, this is a fun opportunity to make some different choices that I don't see anyone else really doing. Nickel Boys, it's the opening film at NIFF. I've been hearing that it's
New
like
York
a
Film Festival. For those of you like
yes,
me who took a second to figure
NIFF,
out what he was saying.
NIFF, TIFF. Venice is pretty easy, but
This
yeah, it's an acronym. But yeah, it's the opening film there. It's based on a highly acclaimed novel. I think it's won some awards. Pretty much the log line is it's like jumping back and forth in time between this academy where they abused the students there and kind of used them for work and such, and then fast forward in present time where it's some of the survivors of the school and they're doing an investigation into the school and all the stuff that happened there and like graves and all that. So I think it could really move people. Um, and also keep in mind, besides Birdman and Oppenheimer, pretty much all of the recent Best Picture winners have been from directors whose films have never been nominated for Best Picture, which in this case would be Ramel Ross, directed a highly acclaimed documentary. It's being shot by, I forget his name, the cinematographer who shot All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt. So it's definitely going to be a beautiful looking film. It's got some great actors in there. It's got Andre Ellis Taylor. It's got an
who I
interesting
think is
twist.
perchance the best chance of an above the line win other than Best Picture.
A
Um,
picture or screenplay. I think
yeah,
that's like the best picture winning package that you can really look at in most of these movies is picture, supporting acting, and screenplay. It's happened for a lot of movies. Um,
if you
so
have
I think
the
we can
actors
see
and you have
that.
the writers, I mean, just look at Coda, for example. That had three
Yeah,
nominations and it won all three because
it
it had
went
those
off.
two
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah, those are
Uh,
the two most important ones. But yeah,
yeah,
I can see this getting kind of the important label and also really moving people. And those are kind of two things combined, both being like having a message and moving people that I think has the potential to win Best Picture.
I also think, Amazon hasn't done particularly well, but I think this is going to be, we're still in a new dawn for the studio after its merger with MGM. So we could be dealing with a new way to campaign. We'll see. They're kind of, an unquantifiable thing in this award season.
They had
Um,
their most success last year, I think, with American Fiction thus
yeah,
far,
definitely. So that's
probably.
why, again, the past with them is not necessarily going to be the prologue for the future. I definitely think it's very possible. I think it is the big, splashy NIF screening, so that could get it a
Mhm.
lot of goodwill. It'll have to maintain that, of course. NIF is
Yeah.
beginning of October, so it's it's around the same time
Yeah.
that a lot of movies become like the first front runner, and then
Mhm.
they have to maintain that throughout the season. Especially a movie that doesn't have a lot of star power. Ingenue Ellis Taylor is definitely well regarded, but
Yeah.
she's not a movie star that can go on talk shows and get people to make it a big theatrical hit.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it can maintain any sort of front runner status if it gets that coming out of NIF. I also think we should note the type of movies that win in election years. Uh,
Yes, that's also, yeah.
Going back, if we look at Argo in 2012, Moonlight in 2016, Nomadland in 2020, you can always see that they tend to have if not outright a political bent, like something like Argo, there is something about leaning into
The
progressive
moment.
stories of wanting to look to the future. About if they're looking back to the past, it's about correcting some past grievance. I think that that's something to keep in mind because that is where the voters are going to be in
Mhm.
this season, especially because I imagine no matter what happens in the election in November, there's going to be a lot of news that engulfs us all between
Yeah.
November and January 20th on Inauguration Day. So I think that is something to keep in mind no matter what is going to be the front runner, that will be top of mind for every single voter in the academy this year, more so than maybe past election years. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with you, frankly, because I think Sing Sing, which we had at number one, I feel like the rollout has been
It's
very.
been a bad rollout.
It's just it opened and it's playing nowhere, at least nowhere
Mhm.
that I like. Listen, I'm in a pretty nice area with like 5, 6 different movie theaters within a 30-mile radius. It's playing at none of them, not my independent
Mhm.
theater. I just don't understand because this is A24. It's potentially their big hitter. They must think that maybe this isn't their big hitter. It's just I haven't seen a rollout like this in recent while where a movie debuts and yet nobody has seen it.
No one's seeing it. Yeah, it's like people are seeing it theoretically, but I don't know how many theaters it's in. I think it's technically still in limited, but even then, like I know some people might say, "Oh, it'll do better when it goes wide," but usually movies when they do better when they go wide, they have to at least still do good and have some word of mouth and
Yeah.
buzz going on while they're in limited for them to do better when they go wide. And right now, because it doesn't have that in limited, I don't think it's going to really be that big when it expands either.
I mean, I point to not just because it's my favorite movie, but La La Land was very smart. I believe, its first weekend in limited release was December 2nd, 2016. Had a
Mhm.
great per theater average. Then added more theaters December 9th, and then went semi-wide, if not completely wide, December 16th to counter Rogue One. And then it was, expanding through to Christmas. And that was a little independent original musical that had a great per theater average that went on to gross over $400 million worldwide. I mean, that is huge. That is what you hope to do. I'm not saying Sing
Yeah.
Sing could have ever reached those heights, but like that is the journey of growing a movie and getting people to pay attention to it because you want those good headlines. I really do believe that the thing that took The Fablemans down 2 years ago was the bad box office performance. If that film had performed well, I think you could have seen Michelle Williams be more competitive in that top three. You could have seen Paul Dano maybe get in, and maybe they get 2 nominations in supporting actor. Once you get this sort of box office poison label, and you're not building the success the way you want to, I think it's unfortunate the movie kind of is tarnished in the public eye because
Yeah.
you're not looked at as a winner. And that's what you need when you're in an Oscar race. You need to be looked at as a winner.
Yeah.
When people vote, it's already a done deal. You're already a winner with a capital W.
Yeah, and I do wonder in this post-COVID-ish, we're not really ever post-COVID, unfortunately, but pretty much post-COVID Oscars world, the last two winners have been pretty undeniable box office hits. So I
Yeah.
do wonder when you look at these here, I don't really see any of them being bigger than any of those two films, besides Dune Part 2, obviously, but I don't think that's going to win Best Picture. But I think it's really these top four here right now who I think have the best shot at winning. And I don't see it. I mean, obviously, Sing Sing already not a box office hit. I don't really see any of the other three like garnering a ton of money. So it'll be interesting how much the box office plays in the year. But I do think Sing Sing is the kind of film that will benefit from not a lot of people seeing it early on in the year, and then like, a lot of Academy members discovering it on like the screening portal closer to voting. I think it could kind of like Coda have that benefit, but I don't know. I think also maybe it could kind of be like Past Lives last year, where A24 kind of fumbles the summer release, and the word of mouth doesn't spread as much as it should. And then maybe they pick up or find another film that they think will do better, kind of like the Zone of Interest last year ended up being their bigger contender than
Yeah.
past life was.
I do think though that Coleman Domingo being so strong in Best Actor is
Mhm.
what keeps Sing Sing in the conversation. So as long as that continues to happen, the movie at least bodes well in this category. I do want to mention I think Conclave is a very strong number
Yes.
two. It kind of fits the vibe of other number two movies like The Banshees of Inisherin, like
Mhm.
American Fiction or Poor Things, where you can't really picture it winning Best Picture, but you definitely know it is a strong competitor to be in the top three. I think putting it at two is a very even whether Nickel Boys or Sing Sing is number one, whatever you have in the comments, you can let us know.
Yeah.
I think Conclave is definitely a strong number two choice. And
Yeah.
then Aurora, I think again four coming out of Cannes, right? I think that definitely has a lot of support, and that is one that I think could potentially out of the top four, definitely not the top five. Out of the top four,
Yeah.
I do think maybe has the best chance of being the biggest box office hit of all.
Probably. That or Conclave. Nickel Boys and obviously Sing Sing, I don't really see um, being huge, but I think Conclave could kind of, maybe on a much smaller scale, kind of be similar to Oppenheimer last year, like on a much smaller scale, because obviously it's not Nolan, but like more in the acting categories, I guess, like a more subtle lead performance from an established actor where the character is kind of like feeling the weight of a decision they have to make, and leading an effort, which in this case is picking out the new pope that has long lasting effects, slash like the nuclear war stuff for Oppenheimer. Supporting actress performance from an actress who hasn't gotten their first nomination, who's sitting quietly in the background most of the time and then has a burst moment at the end, which Edward Berger has said Rossellini has. Supporting actor playing more of an antagonistic role with, I think, John Lithgow in this film, slash Downey. So I
Sounds
think
like you've
it could be
seen this
similar.
movie.
I've read a synopsis of the book, and then I also read the Vanity Fair article on it. So
Yeah.
I think in the acting categories, it could be a little similar. I don't know if this is
Yeah.
going to win two acting categories. That's pretty
It's
rare.
got to get, it's I listen, I always say that it's got to be people's favorite. There's no world where a movie wins Best Picture where it's not somebody's favorite movie, and it's got to be, vocally passionate about it. So we're gonna have to see that. I do know I
Yeah,
have sensed among my cinephile, Gen Z friends, among my mom and people of her generation, they're leaning into Conclave. They really like
yeah,
the trailer they've seen. So if it can amass people like that, then it could be this sort of handsome little package that appeals to all the different branches.
yeah.
I want to talk about five, and then maybe jump to your six through
Quickly,
10.
one last thing on Conclave. I do think, as we mentioned, in an election year, a film that's kind of centered around the complications and morality of choosing a new leader could play well.
It very well could. All right, so let's talk about Dune, and I
Yeah.
want to lump it in what I assume is on the next slide, which is Gladiator 2,
Yes, that
um,
is number
and
6.
potentially Joker, because this is a lot of blockbusters. Um,
Mhm.
I still believe that Gladiator 2, if it performs, and I'm putting a lot of faith in Ridley Scott,
Yeah.
I still think that probably goes above Dune Part 2 because I do think that he is very competitive in Best Director, um,
Mhm.
which
I
is
just
why,
have Dune higher because we know it's good, so it's
yes,
more
I
assured.
think that's fair. Again, I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm hope dicting with Gladiator 2. There's just something that in
It's
this
the
director
sauce
race,
is different.
which we'll get into, I just feel as if he delivers, then this is the chance to give him.
Mhm.
We just did it with Nolan. Let's do it with Ridley Scott. Um, yeah, my worry with Dune is just that I see a Two Towers like performance for it where
Yeah.
I don't see it really distinguishing itself that much from the first film, and so I don't think people are going to feel the urge to go back to the well. When you
Mhm.
have Gladiator 2, it's been what, 20 plus years since the original, one Best Picture, and Joker 2 is doing stuff completely different from the first. I just don't know if Dune is able to fit in the same way. In the same way that you looked at like Black Panther Wakanda Forever was more or less similar to the first film, and compared to Avatar 2, which I think blew everybody away. It'd been 13
Yeah.
years. It was in a completely different ecosystem. That's how I kind of see the vibes around the sequels in contention this year.
Yeah, I agree, I agree, yeah. Yeah, I think Dune, I agree, it's similar to, Two Towers. It'll be a tech contender. It made a lot of money. It'll get picture, text. I don't think it'll really get anything else. I honestly still have doubts about Denis getting into director, but we'll talk about that category in that video. We'll see. It is an interesting race this year in director, so there's room. But yeah, I think it's pretty safe to be nominated, but to contend for like any wins besides maybe a tech or two, I don't really think so. And yeah, quickly on Anora, it won the Palme d'Or. It's obviously, I think because it won the Palme and it was the biggest film out of Cannes, it's going to get nominated. I think it's pretty easily going to win original screenplay, just looking at that category. So I think if you can win screenplay, that usually means you could potentially win Best Picture. So I think it's worth considering. But right now, I don't know if the Academy as a whole is going to like go hard for a film about a sex worker like getting into trouble with a rich Russian family. So I think they'll more see it as an opportunity to like give Sean Baker his flowers more so than give the entire film its flowers.
I do think the thing that maybe hurts Anora more than her profession and the subject matter is just that I think it's going to skew young. I think it's going to skew younger. That's why I'm maybe like the crowd that came out for Challengers comes out for Anora. Mikey Madison definitely isn't at the same star wattage as Zendaya, but you know, if it can blow up on TikTok, who knows? But I think that is what I think hurts it more than anything else. So I agree. I think maybe it you know, it's like Belfast. It wins. Its screenplay is the one it wins, and we can count all our chickens on that.
Yeah, agreed. So now our bottom half of Best Picture, as you mentioned, the other sequel, I've got Gladiator 2. I've had it in since we did our first predictions. I'm not giving up on it. I'm not backing down from it until it like gets bad reviews or something like that. But yeah, right now I don't think it will. I think it'll get pretty good overall reviews, like not raves, but pretty good. I think it'll make a lot of money at the box office. I think it'll get into a lot of the tech categories, get at least one acting nom, and at that point, if you're in a bunch of tech categories, an acting nom, that's really enough to get into Best Picture, unless you're like Black Panther or Wakanda Forever. But even then, that's like right on the edge, which I think maybe might be more of Joker this year than Gladiator 2. But I don't think there's room for all three of the sequels in here. But yeah, I think it's going to be better and bigger than Napoleon, which still got 3 Oscar noms and was probably like 12 or 13 in picture. Yeah, I feel pretty good about this one, but we shall see.
Yeah, I've made my case for Gladiator 2. If it does well at the box office, I think it'll definitely play in the crafts. I think it'll get potentially an actor here or there. PGA will definitely fall for this. Yeah, I think, and if it can build that directing narrative for Ridley, I think also, listen, Aliens in the news this week. I get the sense that, because I'm trying to think as far as like major directors that don't have an Oscar. Is there anybody? He's up there, and just thinking about Blade Runner and Alien and Thelma and Louise, which I just saw on Twitter, was somebody who was talking about how great a film is. He has had such a storied career that I do think that if the right narratives can take shape and he doesn't shoot himself in the foot, this just feels like the moment to honor his entire legacy, And yes, it happened last year with Nolan, or this year with Nolan. It was only several months ago.
It feels so long ago.
It does. But that, listen, things can happen in quick succession. It's just because something happens one year doesn't mean it's off the table from happening the next. Just look at the fact that we had 2 Best Picture winners with light as the suffix in their title 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, that's true. So, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just I don't know. I'm rooting for it. Listen, I love Ridley Scott. Blade Runner's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. So I really want this to be a success for him. And I think he's in his element. I think House of Gucci, like Napoleon. I feel like he's going back to what he does great, which is I think cerebral blockbusters. Like he kind of in many ways is the middleman between Spielberg and Nolan, as far as being able to make highbrow genre movies that can appeal to cinephiles and appeal to a general audience. And Gladiator was definitely one of the big highlights of that career. So we'll see. We'll see.
Agreed. Emilia Perez, it's Netflix's main push, and it's, I think, right now the clear international feature frontrunner. So I think that's enough to have it in Best Picture. I'm not like, I see some people like much more confident in it. Based on the reactions from Cannes, I do think it might not be like complete praise, and because it's a musical, some of the stuff might not work for everyone. But I think acting noms, maybe a few techs, and it's Netflix's main push is really enough to get into Best Picture at this point.
strong acting play. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think 7 is a great place for it. It's definitely one of the ones I'm most looking forward to.
Yes, yes, me too. It'll be interesting. Blitz. This is an interesting one still. I don't think it's going to be the huge contender we thought it was maybe a few years ago when it was first announced, but I do still think it'll be a good film because it's Steve McQueen. And it's really the only movie Apple has like money to put towards for a campaign.
Oh,
I
we'll
can kind
see.
of see.
They recently shared that they're not, I think, as liquid as they used to be.
Yes.
So the
Hmm.
type of campaigns that they might have been able to run for Killers of the Flower Moon or Coda, I
Yeah.
don't know if that translates to this season. Just something to keep in
Hmm.
mind.
Yeah, and they're not giving it a full theatrical release like they did with some of their other films, but that may be because of the money.
Argyle sunk
Um,
that boat.
Argyle did, and then it was
Argyle
followed
blitz
by
blitz.
yeah, it did, it
Oh
did.
god.
But I could still kind of see it being kind of like, I don't know, like a licorice pizza where the film overall isn't huge and it really only gets like picture, director, screenplay, and it gets those latter two more because it's from like it's a respected good film from a respected like auteur known filmmaker, but doesn't like have enough passion to really make it in anywhere else. But I don't know.
I think Saoirse Ronan really does help the
Maybe.
movie.
Yeah.
Um, in a big way. And I also think because if you're comparing this to Steve McQueen's last bout with Oscar, which was Widows, which came up short,
Yeah.
that was a very commercial film in a year we really embraced commercial movies more so than we had in the past couple years because we had A Star Is Born, Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody, Green Book. So I think this doesn't seem like that sort of category. So I think it probably fares better because it is coming from an established name, which if you look at this list, I mean, we don't really have a lot of, especially in the indie crowd, we
No.
have a lot of, I mean, when James Mangold and Edward Berger are your big independent favorites, I think that Steve McQueen probably does, he's able to stand tall with Blitz. So let's see
Yeah.
how the movie is received.
For sure. Another film that will be debuting, I believe, no, at LIFF, which is the London International Film Festival, then NIF. Lots of ifs going on. Number 9, this is kind of similar to Amelia Press. It's here because it Searchlight's obvious main awards season push, because I think A Real Pain and Night Bitch aren't really going to completely work out for a picture, at least.
It's a real
not
pain that Night Bitch isn't going to work out for you.
It is. It is. It didn't really. Those images really threw me off, and then I don't know. We'll see how it debuts review wise at TIFF. But yeah, we'll see it much later on this list. Is all.
Hey, listen. Everybody was thrown off at the first image of Heath Ledger's The Joker, and look what happened.
Yeah,
Heath Ledger's The Joker, forever the excuse of waiting to see the product.
We'll have to see how Amy Adams running with dogs with some interesting cinematography turns out. But yeah, I think we'll talk about that more with acting
You should
as
run
well.
to Who Let the Dogs Out. I think that would be funny.
She should run to her agent with an army of dogs and hold them hostage. But yeah, a complete unknown. I'm not confident that the film will be amazing, but it's still James Mangold, and he mostly makes good movies. I don't think it'll be atrociously bad. I think it could just be like a basic biopic, and even then, the Academy embraced Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a bad biopic. So they like these musical biopics. It'll get some
If
acting
they
nods.
make money, Bohemian Rhapsody does not get into
That's
Best
true.
Picture if it was
Elvis made
the
money.
highest at the time, the highest grossing drama of all time.
That's
It made
insane.
$900 million. Thank you, Oppenheimer, for stealing back that record.
Yes, thank God. My God.
But that's why, and it was a big event. I mean, and it was a big box office hit for something that didn't have the Marvel logo in front of it. So a complete unknown would have to do that, and I don't think Bob Dylan's just oeuvre
He's not as big.
elicits that sort of box office reception. It doesn't mean it's not going to be good, but this is definitely going to be more like the other James Mangold movie, Walk the Line,
Yes.
Cash movie, than I think Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is probably one that like is on the bubble, but I think Searchlight is going to put everything into Timothée Chalamet because I think with the year that he's had, coming off the 2 box office hits of Wonka and Dune Part 2, Dune Part 2 is going to be in the conversation. I think he has a very strong chance of winning Best Actor, and I think they're going to push it there. If the movie is that exceptional, then maybe it shows up here. If it does well at the box office, maybe it shows up here. But I really think that I don't. If let me just put it this way: if it doesn't get into picture, I don't think that is a big disappointment for this movie.
No. I
Like
agree.
if Amelia Perez didn't get in, that would be a shock.
Mhm.
Or any of the top 5 movies. So
Because the package here isn't like it's what Timothy, like a sound nomination, maybe screenplay, maybe
Mhm.
like a supporting for Norton or Elle Fanning if they're great in it, and that's really it. Plus
I could see
picture.
Norton maybe sneaking in.
Yeah,
I'd say
I could see room for
seems like
him.
the sort of like, "Hey, we still like you."
Yeah,
For sort
it's
of
been a minute. It's been a minute.
validation. And then Baby Girl, I'm glad to see you starting to embrace
Yes.
one off of the strength of Nicole Kidman and A24. I could see a world where this is the A24 frontrunner and Sing Sing falls away.
Mhm.
And we've seen Coleman Domingo able to get in without the movie getting into Best Picture, without the movie even having any footprint beyond him. So maybe A24 does make this the priority. I think they're going to want to see how this plays.
At the
Um,
fests, yeah,
I think honestly they're going to want to see how this plays with the guilds. I could see this being,
that's true.
you look at like past A24 often. I feel it's they're kind of the inverse where usually you need the box office to build the momentum. They kind of need the
Mhm.
guilds to kind of like validate the movie first, and then it can
Yeah.
go out and perform. I look at certain movies like Moonlight, of course, was beloved from the first minute it played, compared to something like Good Time, which I think definitely could have gotten some techs, or Uncut Gems,
Mhm.
but the guilds weren't embracing it, and then it just never it was a non-starter for them. So I think Baby Girl is going to have to test the water to see if they're going to bite, and if they will, then we could be off to the races.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said at the start, this is really the last time of year we have a chance to take these big swings, that most people don't take. Last year, I took the Naiad swing to be different from everywhere else. This year, I'm going with Baby Girl to be different from everyone else. I think you described it when we talked about it, I think in the acting categories a few weeks ago, as like Nicole Kidman's Tar,
Yeah.
which I just can't unsee that. It's a powerful, influential woman led by an Oscar-winning actress whose
Yeah.
career begins to crumble due to, like, poor decision making. I think I think potentially we could see some of the best work of both Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson, who I think is becoming, a very
And then
respected actor.
not equatable careers, but yes, he's on his way.
Yes, he's on his way up. And I think Helena Rain did a great job directing Bodies, Bodies. I think she's directed some short films that are probably going to be more similar tone-wise to this. I think she, like, directed a short film that was about a psychologist's relationship with their patient, so she doesn't just do, like, Gen Z humor stuff. I think she's got some
But
range to her.
I think that is a strength of hers that I do think that with Bodies, 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 she proved that she has an awareness of how to appeal to Gen Z moviegoers.
Mhm.
And this could be this could be like what A24 did with The Whale, where that was surprisingly like a big
Yeah.
hit over the Christmas corridor. Like, who would have thought people would want to be
Yeah.
bludgeoned to death
Oh, yeah.
over the
I
New
didn't want it.
Year's, break?
Yeah.
So if Helena Rain is able to kind of play into those sensibilities while getting the people who fell, head over heels in love with Tar, like I did, I mean, that is a very strong coalition of support that could get Baby Girl into this conversation. I'm
Mhm.
feeling very optimistic about it, just because, again, I think it's one of the more exciting log lines of the films that
Yeah.
are in contention, and I think it is assured a nomination with Nicole Kidman. I'm very
Mhm.
strong about that, and I
It's a yeah. It's
people just
surprising
want
how
to
few
see
people
her
have her.
in a movie like this, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about it before. She's the kind of actress who it's like, "Okay, I think we can see a second Oscar coming her way soon." Um, and yeah, it's hitting, I think, like, 3 festivals. It's Venice, TIFF, I think it's going to Telluride. I think I can see it being, like, a critic's favorite at the end of the year. Could get multiple acting nominations, screenplay, and at that point, that's enough. Acting nominations plus screenplay is enough for me to put it at the bottom of Best Picture right now, because some of the movies we're gonna get into after this, I think, have some more detractions than, Baby Girl does. But yeah, that's my big swing this year, I guess. Let
And
us
I'll just say, because I know some people will bring up, well, Nicole Kidman's been in movies that don't necessarily translate. Boys Erased. I'm getting confused with Bo is Afraid, but Boy Erased or Destroyer. But I
The
don't think
Goldfinch.
the Goldfish. But again, notice that with two of those movies, she's playing supporting roles.
Yeah.
And in Destroyer, I mean, that was, I believe, from Annapurna Pictures. So like,
Mhm,
it's not. I feel like those movies are not coming from a source of strength that I right now I think Baby Girl could be coming from. So
mhm.
there is the potential switch, and also it's been, I think, what how long 3 years since being the Ricardos, and I mean,
Mhm.
she was, I think, very competitive in that category. I think there was a
Yeah, she
sense of
was the front runner at first.
well, until SAG, and then it switched
Yes,
to Jessica Chastain.
Jessica Chastain.
I forget if she won the Golden Globes, the
I think she
Faux
did
Golden
win the Golden
Globes.
Globe in the
Didn't happen.
musical comedy category.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm trying to well, no.
I think
Which
so.
did she? Because didn't Rachel Zegler win?
Oh, that's true. Rachel Zegler. I don't
So,
know.
it's
She
odd.
won something to be the front runner at first, I
The
feel
Golden
like.
Globes, it didn't happen. But anyway, I think that even then, like, I just didn't get the sense that, like, that was, like, the Nicole Kidman show, that felt like the Aaron Sorkin show, it felt like the Lucille
Mhm.
Ball show.
Yeah.
What was great about Tar is that people definitely gave respect to Todd Field, but it was
Mhm.
Cate Blanchett, master class of acting, and I think that is what this could be, and why I think it could stand above those other movies, because it just seems more, salacious maybe by its log line, a little bit more interesting. Those other movies I think didn't appeal to people in the same way that I think this one could.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think people love seeing, um, actresses, like, well-respected, tenured actresses get, like, these juicy leading roles, like a Tar or like a Baby Girl. I think it's a good thing to see. But now getting into our on the edge people. Number 11, I got The Room Next Door. It's Pedro Almodovar's first English language film. Julianne Moore, Tilda Swinton. Um, I could like, why it's number 11. I could see it getting in there, kind of similar to Baby Girl, where it gets multiple acting noms and screenplay. But some people have said it could be divisive. I also Pedro has never gotten a film to Best Picture before. So I don't know if some people seem to think just completely because it's an English film that he can now get into Best Picture, which could be true, but I don't know. I feel like if he had a super strong enough film before, he probably would have gotten in.
I
But
mean,
it's right on the
I
edge.
don't know. I feel that he's been beloved. He's gotten, he's been able to get his actors in, because they're the identifiable faces, and
Yeah.
they were able to take out heavy hitters. So I think
Mhm.
maybe the language barrier was what was holding him
Maybe.
back. I could see. I think that, especially because do we have a foreign language film in your current
You've got
10?
Amelia Perez. That's the only one.
Yeah, but even then, that stars what? Selena Gomez.
It stars like
It's still a
stars.
flashy film. I could see The Room Next Door maybe creeping in and maybe taking out, maybe Sing Sing potentially if that one really doesn't materialize.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't know. I think I would put more stock in Room
That's
Next
fair.
Door. You are
Yeah.
very high on Saturday Night.
Well, I think looking at the TIFF schedule and the TIFF movies, I honestly think it's probably going to win People's Choice. It's got a ton of screenings. I think it'll be a crowd pleaser, and I
Seems too
also think it'll get
television. I don't know.
maybe. I think it'll pretty safely get a screenplay nomination at this point. I feel like there's definitely room for that.
It
Yeah,
could be
I
it could
don't.
be one of those films that gets a lone screenwriting nomination.
I
Like if
think it
that's
probably will be actually. Honestly, that
um
makes more sense for it.
I will say though, I have a friend who's seen it and was raving about it, so it could
Oh,
surprise,
nice.
and
Yeah.
it could maintain that momentum, especially because it'll be around the time of voting that people are getting excited for the 50th
Mhm.
anniversary special, which I believe is in February.
Yeah.
So
And everyone
it
loves the industry loves SNL. Everyone goes on.
that they do, and I think potentially with the political sphere that we're going to be going into, they could have one of their
Mhm.
best seasons because I do the
Yeah.
2020 was hard because of the pandemic, but 2016
Mhm.
that I think that was a season that got many people into SNL. I know it definitely got
Yeah.
me paying attention to SNL for the first time. So
Mhm.
that could help it as well. I could see a world where maybe it gets in. I would love if Gabriel LaBelle could be like a
That
major
would be
player. He
amazing.
was
Yeah.
robbed of consideration for.
He
Uh,
was.
I don't believe in snubs, but like no, he was not even uttered as a possibility ever for the Fablemans. I'm like, he is so good.
We were considering Tom Cruise for Top Gun, though. Yeah.
Um, but I know, but so I'm not counting it out all together, but I feel like there are certain hurdles that we'll have to jump first, and the first
Mhm.
I'll have to jump. It can't be too commercial, and it can't be too television.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then we got Joker at number 13. Right now, I just think this will be tech nominations. I also notice it's getting back when we did our first predictions, however long ago, I didn't have it in Best Picture, and everyone in the comment section and everyone in the live stream was making fun of me and saying, "That's crazy. How could you ever do that?" And now a lot of people, it's becoming more common to not have Joker in Best Picture. And I'm just gonna say, I was on the front lines of that.
Well,
So,
hold on for a second, because listen, I think that what people at the time were responding to was the reveal of the trailer and being
mhm.
taken aback by the artistry that seems to be on display. I mean, that first teaser was one of the best
Yeah,
trailers I've ever seen. And then, of course, that inherently will calm down. And I think the second trailer gave us more of the same, which isn't wrong, but you're not going to get the same wow factor from the discovery of seeing it. And I think that's
yeah.
what's been contributing to a little bit of the more subdued response to it now than a couple months ago.
Mhm.
I still think it's very strong because I do think, listen, from the few people that have seen it, I mean, the Venice chair, right, has seen it, and he said it
Yeah,
was
but
one of
he's the Venice chair. He
I'm
hyped up
just
Ferrari as an Oscar contender last
I
year.
understand that, but going off of the people that we know have seen this movie, they have said it's one of the great American movies of the past couple of years. And it very well could be. We don't know. It's taking a huge
Okay.
risk, and that risk could pay off. And I think it's going to pay off in a lot of the text. And I do think it could pay off in the acting with Lady Gaga. The
Not
Joaquin
well.
Phoenix news of
Yeah.
last week makes me very hesitant for anybody to get behind
Yeah.
him recently. But listen, also, he could still get nominated. He won for the first film. They love this role. And listen, Mel Gibson got
Yeah.
nominated for Best Director. Sometimes they don't care about the baggage you bring. If you're
Yeah.
good, you're good, and you get nominated. So
I think
Joaquin
pundits put
Phoenix news ends this movie's chances. I
yeah.
think right now, again, I'm in that mode of the novelty of the promise of this movie has worn off a little bit since the first trailer. It now has to really deliver like it's like Gladiator 2 that it's such a question mark. I just think we're leaning more Gladiator 2 than Joker
Mhm.
because of the fact that that movie won Best Picture. I mean, despite its great performance
And
for
it's
the
been
first film,
longer.
it was controversial, and there's the possibility that what we're not anticipating is that in the 5 years since the first one, there has been a sort of reevaluation of the film that will then
Mhm.
reveal itself upon the sequel's release. And then if the sequel is polarizing, as it very well could be, not only because of the subject matter, but because of the genres it's infusing, you could get people saying, oh, yeah, this wasn't as good as I remember it being in 2019. I think that's a possible route. And then you're right, it's an honorable mention. But I wouldn't throw it out. I think PGA is
No.
very strong. The guilds, I think, like cinematography, I think is a very strong competitor to win. It is a
Yeah.
musical that always helps with a lot of these craft categories. And I do think Lady Gaga could deliver a very powerful, very encompassing performance. So I would still maybe have it in there, but it's closer to 10 than 1 for me.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna capture the same lightning in a bottle that the first film did. And I do think the reviews are either going to be like on the same like mixed positive level or lower. I don't see a world where it's like much better reviewed than the first one. Like, I mean, maybe, but
Listen,
I don't,
I hate playing this game, but do you think it's going to be rotten?
um, if it is, it's just barely, but honestly, right now, I think it's probably gonna be close to the first film where it's like
High
low
60s.
60s.
Okay.
Yeah, high low 60s around that area. I mean, it could be a total mess. Who knows?
I
But
still think that what held people back from the first film was, I think the major criticisms was the bleakness of it, the
mhm,
tone, and the derivative nature of them feeling it was copying Scorsese. I don't think you get those same two critiques with this film, which is why
no,
I've always been very confident, because I do think the fact that it's a musical inherently means it's going to be a little bit more joyful. And I do
yeah,
think that because it's doing this big swing, I mean, you can compare it to like New York, New York, but really, are you going to compare? Like, I just don't think there are a lot of movies that you can compare this to, which is
yeah,
why I think it still has a good chance of getting in there, and it's potential that we get 3 sequels in. Listen, we have to acknowledge that sequels are they are getting better. I think if you look at the
yeah,
2020, if you look at the sort of IP things, I think because we're now the 2010 showed us the power of nostalgia, and I think the 2020s are showing us that like auteur filmmakers, or just because I don't like auteur, the idea of
yeah,
auteur theory, but just
me either.
like big budget filmmakers, esteemed filmmakers are now knowing how to take that sort of trend and apply it to, really great works of art. And I think we've seen that with, you know, Oppenheimer, though it kind of had, you know, feet in both camps. But
Yeah,
Barbie, Everything Ever All at Once, Dune, Avatar, Top Gun, Joker, I think that is what this is representing. And so the idea that there could be 3 sequels, I mean, we thought some people were predicting 4 sequels in 2022,
Yeah.
and we got 2. In this world,
2
such
seems like a safe bet.
all different, I could see 3. I think 3 is. I wouldn't just count out Joker just because, oh, we can't have 3 sequels, because we could.
No, no, it's more because I don't have it getting in anywhere above. I just have getting text and nothing above the line. So right now, I'm not confident enough to put it into Best Picture. But
I
if it
think that's
comes
fair.
out,
If you don't think it's going to get into screenplay and you don't think it's
yeah,
going to get Todd Phillips, then really
oh
you're
no,
putting all your above the line hopes into Lady Gaga. Though
hmm
I also think that that's not necessarily the worst thing. I mean, musicals are this fickle thing because it can appeal to people's emotions so strongly that it gets in, and it doesn't really need a lot of the crafts. I mean,
musicals don't get screenplay. Yeah,
we've seen that happen before where, the musical gets in and it doesn't really have a lot. I mean, Les Mis was definitely not a movie. It didn't have a screenplay. It didn't have a
hmm
director.
yeah,
It had Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman, and it won for Anne Hathaway. This could follow in that trajectory because
maybe.
if it gets 2 actors and picture, and that's the only above the line stuff. I mean, that very well could be the exact same thing that happens with
Oh
Joker.
yeah, yeah. It definitely has a enough of a nomination package to get into picture. Right now, it's kind of similar to what I said with Gladiator. I started off not having it in Best Picture like I did have Gladiator. I'm gonna stick with not having it in until it comes out, and we'll have to see what happens after
You would
that.
rather it not get in and you have always not had it in than
Yes.
you put it in and it misses and
hmm
be like,
Yeah.
God damn it.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
Because
Jack's thinking.
that's my exact thinking until it comes out and it'll make money, but
Yeah.
has good reviews and all that. But yeah, I think because when you look back on everyone's first predictions, everyone had it in and I didn't. So I'm going to stick with that until it doesn't pan out. I'm being stubborn about it. And yeah, then everything else. We've got the double Luca thing here. Honestly, I've got more faith in this point at Challengers being an Oscar contender than Queer, possibly just because with Challengers, I don't I can see it doing well at Critics Awards at the end of the year. I can see it being a critics' favorite at the end of the year still. I can see it easily getting an original screenplay nom, a score nom. Zendaya will pop up at some
Sound.
places like the Globes, sound, editing. So I can see a good enough package for this film to like be on the edge of the bottom of Best Picture. Um,
Emphasize. I agree. Until we see
yeah.
Queer, I mean, with the long run time, this is kind of how I'm kind of looking at it. Challengers feels like Challengers is to poor things what Queer is to kinds of kindness. It's kind of the
Okay.
vibe
Yeah.
from the 2 movies. Challenger seems like the more box office friendly,
hmm
which that has definitely been proven to be true. Challengers, I think, definitely did well in theaters.
Yeah.
Um, and I agree with you. Zendaya is a major star. I mean,
hmm
there could be a world where she is just so likable. Maybe she's an America Ferrera and she just gets
Yeah.
in the last minute. Yeah, I think that definitely. I think 14 is a great place for it to be.
Right on the edge. Yeah, I agree. And then with Queer, I don't know. I just looking at the subject material, unless he's completely changed it from the book, which he very well could have. He's added new characters like Leslie Manville's character. I don't believe is
I
even
thought
in
you
the book,
said he's
but
added lesbians.
he's added lesbians. It's well, it's called Queer. I think it's mostly gay men, but I'm sure maybe Leslie Manville is a lesbian in the film. Who knows? But yeah, I think based off the book, it's about an older man pursuing a younger man who's presumably heterosexual, not very interested in him. Luca has said that there's very explicit sex scenes in it. When you look at some of the more queer films that they've let in to Best Picture in the past, there's usually not as much explicit sex scenes as compared to like an All of Us Strangers last year, which I think was more explicit about it and did miss. I
That was
do think
also very slow, which I think was the
that's
major.
fair.
It
And
was
this could
slow
be
and it
too
was hard
with
to
the
explain, which I think
Mhm,
was that was more the strikes against it than the explicitness. Because I mean, Call Me by Your Name was explicit. My aunt
mhm.
found it very uncomfortable to watch it with me. Now,
This
granted,
is
I'm
not
16,
explicit.
16 when the movie came out, but still, like that was explicit and it got in. So I think
I think this will be much more
we'll
explicit. Based,
we'll have to see. We'll find out at NIFF.
yeah, we will. Well, no, we'll find out at Venice is the
Oh,
first
Venice first.
place
That's
it
right.
premieres. Venice first, I think. Then
VIF. I like VIF.
Then
Let them
VIF,
all
yeah,
have
the
their
Venice Film Festival. Yeah, VIF. But yeah, we'll have to see. I think it's up. I think right now I see it more as a Daniel Craig acting player more than an overall like picture player. Um, so yeah, and we
Also,
also
Luca's not gonna care. I feel like that's the other thing. It's like when you
no,
have two movies, usually you pick one, and I don't see him picking one, which I think
and
could
we
hurt
also
him potentially.
don't know who is distributing Queer yet as well, which I mean, it's also a big factor. I was trying to figure this out a few days ago, looking at this. When was the last time a movie that didn't have distribution by the time of the fall festivals got into Best Picture? I feel like that just doesn't happen. I feel like
Oh,
you either like,
nomination wise,
yeah, I can't think. I went back to
you look at Six didn't
2017.
have distribution when it went to
It did.
it
Yeah, it
did.
already had MGM.
Um, that's a
I
good.
went back to 2017 and I couldn't find it. So that with Queer and Maria and stuff like that, I'm like, and even The Brutalist, which we could talk about, I'm like, if you don't have distribution by the time of the fall festivals, I think that might be a bad sign, honestly.
Yeah,
Why has
yeah,
no one picked this up at this point?
yeah. So
So
then maybe Challengers is the one to lean more into.
yeah, I think
Challengers,
so
I
at
just
this
worry
point.
is going to be deemed like it's weird because we have so many, right above it is Joker, and we've talked about other box offices. Like I feel like there's the vibe because even like you look at Joker, yes, it's commercial, but the bona fides it has, like it's making choices that don't necessitate like box office glory. You know,
Yeah,
with Challengers, I worry that it's going to be seen as too commercial. Like Challengers to me is quickly becoming like Widows, since we already brought that up this season.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what I worry about. Where Joker, Gladiator 2 could be making decisions in their moves that, yes, they're going to make a lot of money, but people will give them credit because, oh, you went out and you took a risk in this commercial averse world, risk averse world. So it's just something to keep in mind because it did, it's very trendy. It's very plays well on the TikTok.
It is. It is more youth focused, which the Academy doesn't go for. The Academy is not.
Challenges is Brat is basically what I'm saying.
Challengers is Brat. Yeah, and I don't think most Academy members know what Brat is. So
Well, they
actually,
know if they watch CNN and have it
yeah,
explained.
yeah, that's true. Actually, most of them probably do know at this point.
Listen, they gave Best Picture to Oppenheimer. They've aspired to be Brat, at least in my
Mhm.
books. Like that was a
Yeah,
Brat movie.
that was a Brat move. I think. Yeah, I mean, maybe Charlie XCX should say Challengers is Brat, and then that will help its awards campaign, just like it did for Kamala.
Oh my God.
But yeah, and then the other one here we haven't talked about, The Brutalist. This is an interesting one.
Just an
I've seen a lot.
awful title. Why would you name? Who is gonna? Who? Okay, I'm
I don't even
going
know
on my
that name.
screener menu. I got all my screeners. What am I gonna watch? The
It's
Brutalist.
also speaking of
Good
brutal, it's
Lord.
3 hours and 35 minutes.
Oh
So
my God. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, you would have to be the best movie ever made. And then you're still on the bubble. I mean, for the
Mhm.
love of Christ, why
Yeah.
it's like I didn't think you could pick a title that could isolate more Oscar voters than women talking, and they did it. They did it.
They did. The Brutalist.
And I
I
love
would
women
honestly sit
talking,
down and
but
yeah,
just be honest, that
that's
title
not a
definitely
great
cost
title.
a lot of people turning it on first when it came to the
Yeah.
screeners.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely did.
because it's what
But I've
all the
seen
people are afraid of.
yeah, for sure. But I have seen some people say that this movie is supposedly like a masterpiece, which it very well could be, but it's got an interesting premise. But I think it's probably going to be more of a critics thing than an industry thing. I think if you're going to get enough of the industry to sit down and watch a 3 hour and 35-minute film, I think you either have to be like from a great director like Scorsese, or you have to be like definitively unilaterally claimed as one of the best films of the year, like maybe Drive My Car, but even then that was under
Yeah, but
3 hours.
I posit that 3 hours is very different than
Mhm.
3.5.
Three and a
Once
half.
I think once you cross 305, you're in no man's land. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, Kills the Flower Moon did it. Yes, Godfather 2 won. Yes, there are,
Those are,
Lawrence
yeah.
Arabia. There's a lot of movies that have won with that runtime. But I feel like you look at Babylon at 308. I just think there's
Mhm.
something about going beyond 3 hours, 5 minutes when there is still footage rolling at the 3 hour mark. I really think
Yeah.
it turns people off because then they have to split it. If they're watching at home, they don't watch it in one night, and that affects the
Mhm.
viewing experience. If they're going to the
There's an
theater,
intermission for this one,
hard to
apparently.
find. It's just there is something to be said about the runtime. The thing about Oppenheimer is that everybody knew to go to the theater and to give up control to Nolan and watch it in 70 millimeter IMAX. And I think that helped it because it meant that people weren't doing the Irishman thing of, oh, I'm going to watch it in 45-minute increments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I worry about for something like The Brutalist, because I don't know if it's going to necessitate in-theater viewing. And if you wait to screen it, the movie's screwed.
It does not have distribution either. So we don't know if it'll end up on streaming or in theaters. So a mystery, we'll see. But I'm not confident enough to put in a 3-hour, 35-minute Brady Corbett, who's a good director from the stuff I've seen, but I don't think he's a Scorsese.
He's Vox Lux, right?
Yeah, he did Vox Lux.
Yeah, he's a great filmmaker. I loved Vox Lux, and I'm looking forward to this movie. We're talking about predictions here, and that is not gonna. I could see a lot of Oscar voters feeling like, who's this no-name guy who's making a 3.5-hour movie? They'll turn their heads up at it, unfortunately. It's the same people who like talked about Get Out as like the residue outside of like fast food restaurants, and then said, "Oh, I haven't seen it." This is what we're talking about here. This is why we shouldn't give too much stock into who they pick.
Yeah, for sure. And then some final ones here. We've got Seed of the Sacred Fig. I think could be another international. Supposedly, it didn't seem like it was going to be submitted, obviously, by Iran for international feature film because they were going to imprison him and he escaped the country, so they're not going to pick it. But it seems like Germany may submit it as their international film. So if that ends up happening, I think if it's able to contend in international, then Neon will probably maybe put more money behind pushing for it. And then it could get international and screenplay, which I think is a good combo, but I don't think that's enough for Best Picture right here. That's really it for that. Maria, it's another film without distribution where I'm kind of like, why doesn't this have distribution at this point? It's Angelina Jolie in a Pablo Larraín biopic. His previous biopics, I think, had distribution like at least a year before they came out. So I'm just wondering why doesn't this one? It is weird. You think that's something someone would want to pick up? It seems like a guaranteed at least one nomination.
You think, because my thing is, okay, if you want to make the argument that Jackie Kennedy and Diana are bigger figures and therefore worthy of the investment to give them a campaign or just support the movie, then fine.
Yeah.
But I would argue Angelina Jolie is a bigger star than Kristen Stewart and maybe Natalie Portman. So it just seems like that would balance that out. And they're coming off of, both of the last movies performed well at the Oscars. This is a big question mark. It makes me question whether people have seen the movie and don't want to support it for that reason. Because that could be what we're left with.
I'm sure. I don't know. I feel like for some of these films, I'm sure they've screened them for people who could potentially distribute them. And I think
I'm surprised Netflix even because El Conde, that was his last movie, and that got a cinematography nomination. He has a relationship with Netflix. What's going on with this movie? Maybe he's holding it. Maybe this could be the potential thing where maybe they want to hold it because they think maybe Best Actress with Nicole Kidman, Lady Gaga, the Amelia Perez ladies. Maybe they feel like we're going to hold it because we want to give her a better chance of winning.
Maybe
that might be the reason. What else could be withholding this movie?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Best Actress this year is weird too. Like I can't figure out who I'm going to predict to win at this point because who knows? With Night Bitch falling down, who knows about this? Mikey Madison, I'm sure it's great in Honor, and that's the strongest.
Night Bitch falling down or Night Bitch being put down?
It's right there at 21. It's falling down.
No, but like put down, like a dog.
Like a dog. Down. Yeah. Okay. It very well could be put down at the first.
The joke is made a lot sadder when I have to explain.
Yes. I didn't pick it up at first, but I'm sure that'll be the deadline headline for the review.
Headline.
Put this Night Bitch down.
Listen, just because you mentioned it, I would right now put Nicole Kidman at number 1.
I'm thinking about that too. I think it could be a number 2. I don't know. We'll talk about it, but yeah, because I don't think Mikey Madison. I don't think that's the kind of.
He's the Vanessa Kirby, Ana de Armas. Wow, you made a big splash. This is like your first thing. Welcome to the club. But Nicole Kidman, has been here for 30
years. Yeah, that's true. The Piano Lesson is another one worth mentioning. I think it'll mostly just be an acting contender from Netflix with Samuel L. Jackson, Daniel Deadwyler, maybe screenplay. But I think as we've seen with these August Wilson plays lately, we also got a first look at it. The cinematography, it looks like a play at this point. I think that kind of detracts people from it. And I think
Fences has blinded everybody to the fact that look, that was a major hit with 2 Tony-winning dynamite performances by movie stars that were both win competitive, and one of them did win. And it came out for the Christmas corridor, which if it hits, it's a great bit of success because it's a lot of good headlines going right into voting. I would look to 2020 when everybody had top 5, not even top 10, top 5 Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and One Night in Miami, two play nominations about the Black experience, starring Black actors, made by Black talent, and they both came up short in Best Picture, and they did not get in. I worry a similar fate will befall The Piano Lesson.
Yeah, and it's Malcolm Washington directing it, Denzel's son, and he hasn't really done much, so I don't know. I feel like acting contender picture, I have doubts about that, but we'll see. We shall see.
It is a dynamite play, and I think Samuel Jackson being so competitive in supporting actor could help it, but he also doesn't need this movie to be in Best Picture to win. So we'll see.
He could be like Christopher Plummer, yeah. Nosferatu, I'm just putting it out there because I think it'll maybe get some techs, and that's really it. I don't know. We're getting desperate at this. It's probably not going to, but we can
Robert Eggers. Listen, I love Robert Eggers, and I'm not saying that I think he is not this next filmmaker I'm going to mention on the quality of his work. I've enjoyed all 3 of his films, but when it comes to the Academy, he is no Yorgos Lanthimos. I do not expect it to follow suit.
No, but it could get some techs, and that's probably it. But yeah, as we mentioned, Night Bitch we already talked about.
So far, he's gotten 1 nomination, right? Lighthouse for cinematography.
Yeah, that's it.
Northman got nothing, and Northman could. I'm sure there are nominations for Northman that would have been well deserved. Compared to what got nominated. So we'll see. I mean, it's
a release date.
Where the legacy of the original German film. It is coming out in December. It could do well with the guilds. We'll see. Maybe there's a great dynamite electric performance that he got out of. It definitely is his best release date because Lighthouse, I think, was October, and Northman was April, and The Witch was February. So
this will probably do better in October.
Getting closer to an Oscar-worthy release date.
I feel like Nosferatu at Christmas time is not as good as Nosferatu in October, but who knows?
I disagree. I think Nosferatu, because what are cinephiles gonna go see? Mufasa, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. We're gonna go to Nosferatu. And
Baby girl.
It could be what, like if it hits, it could be the sort of like, oh, this is what the industry's gonna get behind for Christmas sort of movie. We'll see. I think people are. This is gonna just be the season of the witch. I think between Beetlejuice, Joker, Folie à Deux, Agatha All Along, Wicked. This is just it's that sort of fall, and Nosferatu could very easily join that cavalcade.
It could. But yeah, I don't think it'll. I think it's really just text probably. Night Bitch is really just Amy Adams. I don't really see anything else. Even then, at this point, I'm kind of like, does Amy Adams miss? Do I make room for someone else in Best Actress? We'll talk about that with her acting, but I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith in it, but she did win, or she has the honor of the TIFF Tribute Award, and they don't usually give that to like.
Did they see the movie before they decided that?
I don't know, but when I think about the past winners, none of them are like. Actually, never mind. Brendan Fraser won for The Whale, so I'm just not going to go there. I was going to say there's no outright terrible films, but there has been one.
I think you just went there, by the way. I think that's what
I did. I did just go there. I
just
said I wasn't.
The reason why you're not going there, you went there.
I put the disclaimer out there to make it seem a little less harsh. But I hope Night Bitch is better than The Whale. We can hope for that. I'm still here.
A lot of movies are better than The Whale. Every time I watch a movie, I'm hoping this is better than The Whale. You can't get much worse than The Whale.
No, you cannot.
Borderlands. I would rather watch Borderlands before watching The Whale again.
Yeah, me too. The Whale was quite an excruciating watch. Sorry, Whale fans. But that was 2 seasons ago. I'm sure you've gotten over it at this point.
Whalers.
The Frasers.
That's what they'll do in the comments.
That is what they'll do in the comments. That's still our most disliked video on this channel. Our review of The Whale. Number 22 is I'm Still Here. We're still here doing predictions.
We are still here. We should not still be here. What is this movie?
It's like an international potential contender from Walter Salles. It's got a few actresses of note in there. It's got Fernanda, I think Montenegro, Fernanda Torres. I could see it maybe getting good reviews and being. I just want to keep an eye out for some of the potential international breakout films, and I think this could be one of those. But I don't know. I'm just putting it there. So in case it happens, it happens. And we had it there. And then I think this is the last one. Best Picture, Fire Inside, which is the boxing film. I think that'll be probably more of a commercial play, but we'll see. It could do well at TIFF and Place. Who knows? It also got Brian Tyree Henry as a coach. So nomination for Brian, probably not, but we can hope. A Real Pain. It's not even. I think the only fall festival it's hitting is NIF. So I would have thought that they would have tried to play it at a few other places like TIFF or a few of the other spots, but I don't know. I never really saw it as a contender anyways, besides maybe screenplay, and even then I've dropped it from that. So yeah, I don't really see it as a contender. All We Imagine as Light, I think could maybe be India's submission and get international and maybe screenplay, but I don't know. At this point, none of these are really things that I see happening. The End, we really know nothing about. We'll see how it gets reviewed at the festivals, but I have doubts that Neon will be able to push this too. Here, I'm keeping it there just in case, but I think Here is probably going to be a little bit of a train wreck, in my opinion, based off the trailer. And then last place, why not? His Three Daughters. I'm looking forward to it on Netflix. Could probably get a supporting actress nomination, maybe, and then screenplay. But I don't know. I don't really see that happening. So yeah, that's the bottom of our best picture list. I don't know. That's pretty much it. Any final thoughts? Is that it?
I think we're good.
I
Let
think
us
we are
know
good.
in the comments below what you think. What you think of
Yeah.
maybe Sing Sing falling, or do you think it's just as strong as it was a month ago? What sequels are in your list? I
Mhm.
think it's. I I feel like once we start to see these movies again, we're gonna get really passionate about this. I feel like we don't have as many early favorites as we have in previous years.
Definitely last year. Yeah.
At this point, wait. Oh my God!
We had.
Since 2020, at this point, the movie would have already been the Best Picture winning movie would have already been
Mhm.
released.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
That's
it's Doom
crazy.
Part 2.
I don't think maybe it's Borderlands. I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, Sing
It's
Sing has
definitely
been released, but
it has.
if any of you can tell us that you found a theater screening this movie, let us know, and we'll be there.
There's even in central Hollywood, Los Angeles, I have to like kind of make a bit of a travel to see Sing
You're
Sing,
in
and
the
that says
greater Los
something.
Angeles area. I'm in the greater New York
Yeah,
area. The fact that the two of
we
us
haven't seen
can't
it.
find a theater that's playing
Yeah.
this movie is ridiculous.
It's insane. I think people are lying that they're seeing it in theaters. I think it's a lie, but who knows? So yeah, that's it for Best Picture predictions. Like Anthony said, comment all your thoughts and predictions down below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for some of our other videos before the Fall Festival, talking about the acting categories and the other categories before we see all of these films. So yeah, where can they find you on the internet, Anthony?
Yes, at Anthony_post on Twitter and Letterboxd. Yeah, you
Yes.
know where to find me. I'm not that hard to find as long as you spell my name right. Don't put the H
Yeah,
in there, and
no H. Yep, the only one out there.
I don't
As
know
for
about
me,
that, but it's
yeah, I am the only Jack Murphy out there, folks.
oh for sure.
For sure, just me. So yes, thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next, probably the acting predictions video after this.